Hello and welcome to the Beth of Fresh Air. I've been missing you guys. I haven't been here for a while. Super excited, just fresh back from Confluence. And today's episode number 27 is called Return. I'm realizing I didn't make a banner for that, but let's see if we can all remember the theme of returning, which is beautiful. And I have the great pleasure of hosting Micah Ellars. I'm going to bring him on. If you're not familiar with him, he is a filmmaker and an acting coach, and most close to my heart is a student and a wonderful, I don't actually want to call him a student. He seems to be much beyond that, but I don't know, I'll let him describe it, of Gurdjieff's work, which we're going to be going into again today. So without further ado, hello, Micah, welcome.
Hi, Beth, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so great to be here. So I'm fresh off the boat, as you know, from Confluence, just arrived the day before yesterday. After quite an epic journey, it's always such an adventure. Now, having traveled enough, particularly with my son, I am noticing really distinct patterns. And you know what? I apologize. We're getting a little bit of an echo on my when I'm talking. So I don't know what that's about, but yeah. So I'm going to be telling just a couple of stories about that. And welcome, Maya. So great to see you. I missed you a lot. And Elisa's in the chat. Fantastic. I got to meet her in person, give her a great big hug. How nice was that? Yeah. So it was definitely an epic style journey. Not a little thing in terms of getting there. We ran into, I'll just tell this, I can't resist. So just out of the gate, I spent the night praying that I was going to do nothing but self-remember on this trip. That's thanks to you and all your work. Like I set my goal. I did a lot of internal work around that. And then boom, out of the gate, we show up at the Winnipeg airport. And little did I know, my boarding pass had been marked with an SSSS. And that's short for give Beth Martins a really hard time, and a special screening. And they took me aside. I got the red envelope, like I got the red mark envelope. They went through every little bit of my carry-on luggage. They forced me to go through the scanner, which I believe I did suffer to some degree or another. I threatened to sue them, of course. And then they forced a pat down, making me believe that if I went through the scanner, that I was somehow going to not have the pat down. My son's on the other side saying things about Mossad and Israel, and he's kind of getting ugly in a few ways. And it was fascinating because, all the feelings came up, and all of the angst and my self-remembering went out the window for that time. But so that's how we started our trip. And then on the way back, it was actually quite the opposite. Every single little thing went in our direction. I was able to opt out of the scanner. I opted out of the facial recognition. We managed to get great flights and great seats, which we shouldn't, because they always let you know when you fly economy that you're like really the bottom of the barrel of everybody there. And everyone was just so amazing. I had a meetup with Dawn Lester in the airport, it was funny. We were literally texting each other saying, I'm sorry I didn't get a photo. And then she comes around the corner and says, is now a good time? And I just literally squealed out of joy to have this chance, beautiful last meeting with someone that I really love and adore. So she's back in the House of Free Will, by the way. And I want to share one more thing, but I'll say hello to Miss Mary Benyon. I always want to say your real name. And and I'm so much prettier in person. Good. Well, thank you for letting everybody know. So funny. And SSS, short for sexy. That's very nice. Miss Melanie, I missed you. I have to catch up with you as well. And so I'd like to share, before Micah and I get into the talking about false personalities again, which has become my all-time favorite subject of all. Like literally, this is the best game ever. Weird game to some people, but it's just so satisfying, that work. I wanted to talk about my biggest takeaway from Confluence. And this was from, I think it was the last day, not the integration day, but the last day when Alec gave a talk at 9 in the morning. I'll tell you, I never make it to anything at 9 a.m. in the morning. I might be up, but I'm doing other stuff, taking care of myself, getting, myself handled before I go off into the world or do work or whatever it is. But I made my son get up after 5 hours of sleep, and we got ourselves there in time for his talk. And it was really divine. His message that he had not planned, he had no talk prepared whatsoever. He'd been through, to say the least, a kind of hero's journey putting that event on. There was a whole bunch of rain before that made the site inaccessible. And if anybody out there has ever organized a major event, which I have back in my corporate days, it is, even if everything goes well, it is I don't know, one of the hardest jobs ever. The demands and the stress is off the charts. And so he got on stage, and he's so, surrendered and kind of beaten up by the whole experience, but in a state of love and trust. And so he talked a lot about how every time he hit some kind of no-win situation, he would just hear this in the back of his mind: trust God, trust God, trust God. And I got a little clip of it. It's going around on Facebook or Facebook, and it's being shared. I'll probably share it direct from my phone as well when I get a chance. And so this was just, it's not that we haven't heard that those aren't new words to me or a new thought. I've explored the idea of trust so much, and I've really pulled apart where trust goes sideways. I won't go deep into that, but I was able to just take that in at such a deep level and begin to practice it. Then I heard Alec tell a different version of the same story on an audio inside the Telegram group for Confluence. And he said, I trusted God that everything was going to be okay. And all of a sudden I had another level of revelation on this. And I realized that that's not what trust is for. He got it exactly right, with all due respect, to trust God rather than trust the situation or trust the process or trust yourself, like the New Agers tend to promote. But the real truth of that is trust God, full stop. Because everything will not be okay. Everything is not going to turn out fine. In the end, we all are going to disappear, our fleshly bodies here on earth. Things go wrong in this world, right? Out of the gate on my trip, I got slammed and smashed by the authorities. That's just part of it. This is part of our adventure. It's part of the, as Gurdjieff, we're going to get deep into, would talk about, those shocks are part of self-remembering. Right? They bring up the emotion we don't know is there. We get to see ourselves and have an opportunity to start deciding in a conscious way. So, oh my goodness, I was up a lot. I shouldn't have been up last night because I should have gone to bed a little earlier with my schedule off. But this stuff just started rushing into me. I ended up writing a song about this, that, don't trust God because you want your health to be good, and you don't trust God because you need this to happen or need that to happen, but just full stop, trust God. And the energy around it was phenomenal. So I'll stop talking about that now, because I want to let people know I'm going to go a lot deeper into all the experiences of Confluence, what we saw, what were some highlights. I'm going to show a slideshow of all the pictures that we got both at the event and some travels Liam and I did after. Liam and I did a snippet video for those in the House of Free Will. There's a language warning on that one, because we both had no filters at all by that point on our way out of Texas the other day. And that's so good. So Diane, I'm glad to know I can say your real name. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Miss Quietly Content Bear, you've missed us and we have missed you. That's fantastic. All right. So Micah, shall we get into this?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So good. And if you can give us a little feedback, or if you can let us know in the chat. I mean, there is a little bit of feedback on my end, and yet it's not so bad. It's not going to completely ruin. So, for the sake of fluidity, Micah, feel free to keep your mic on unless I'm going off in a diatribe. Mostly you're going to be doing some good talking. And Miss Allie McBeal is in the house. Nice to see you. Everything is happening for me, good and bad. Boom, right? That is it. That's it. You just nailed it. So, all right. You know what? I want to say one more thing before I forget, in case I don't later. Is that speaking of what's going on in our world, we're going to talk to you about a course that's coming up. Micah and I are both offering. Very excited about this. And also today, I am just letting people know it's the last day to have a conversation with me about Journey Code before the early bird disappears. So it is a special, if it's something that you've had in the back of your mind to become a coach and help other people to find their patterns through archetypes, and not only learn how to use simple deprogramming tools, but how to help other people get their freedom that way, then do put your hand up one way or another. You can connect with me on Telegram. You can email beth@bethmartins.com. You can come to my website and leave a message there, send a smoke signal, whatever you like. I will definitely respond. And hello, JJ Hempcrete Bear. Great to have you in the house. It's so nice to have you. All right. So let's talk about false personalities. Micah.
Yeah. Okay.
How are you, by the way? Oh, you know what? I would love to start with one other thing that I always forget, because you and I are already deep in this ongoing conversation. I always forget to ask you, how did it all begin? Your interest in Gurdjieff's work. What was it in your life that pushed you to that point?
Oh man. I mean, that's a story that I've only shared with a few people because it's so uh, it's otherworldly. But in general, I've always been a seeker of like the truth, and I I was honestly like I didn't know about Gurdjieff. I'd studied all kinds of like esoteric teachings, wisdom teachings, philosophy. Um, I really wasn't familiar with his work. I think I'd seen him quoted before. And then I actually had my own series of uh, kind of mystical experiences that, led me um, to discovering him. That's the honest truth. It's pretty fantastical. I don't think you and I have talked about it before. I don't, but um, but basically I was shown like symbols that wound up being the Enneagram. And, it's a lot more than that, but to kind of keep it simple, that's what cued me to look into his work. I'd already done an immense amount of studying and practice of many other things. Uh, I've been developing an acting coaching program uh, to do psychological work on people to have personal transformations and breakthroughs. And then I started to see that the things that I was discovering through that were very congruent with his teachings, kind of like when I first brought him up to you about how with your work, there were so many congruencies and parallels. And so I just felt the truth in it, and I could verify it, and then it turned into me kind of all the time, as much as I possibly could, reaching out to people, contacting people, working with different people, joining groups, all that kind of stuff, just really studying it, trying to meet people that had met some of the founding uh, uh, members of the Gurdjieff work, like some of his students or he himself. I was kind of on a quest to get as close to him and his work as I could, because once you once you see the truth like that, it's undeniable. I know, Morris Nickel, who is one of his most prominent students, that wrote like the 6 volume commentary and several other books. And he was a successful surgeon, and when he met Gurdjieff and learned about the teachings, he sold everything. He said, "If I found it, I found the pearl of great price." right? Like in the parable. And so he realized like this is the truth that I'd always been seeking. And he was somebody that was already guaranteed to inherit the Carl Jung's legacy. He had been working with Jung for 10 years. And so he abandoned it all to do it. And it's just the truth is the truth, and it has a potency to it, and it vivifies you. As I'm sure you're aware, you get energy from these things, and it gives you a sense of meaning more than anything, a way of understanding the world. So that's kind of, without going into hyper detail of the journey. Maybe another time we will. I just don't know how much of that I can share publicly, but
Yeah, no pressure at all. I don't want to. I did put you on the spot. There's always something
yeah.
I don't tell you for some reason, but
No. And I
any
don't think I've told you that either. So I don't think we've had that conversation.
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, that's something that we could definitely do as we go along, and or as you like,
Mm,
and then some people have been through more hardship than others in their past. Often, of course, starts in the childhood that it's really difficult. I was listening to Liam this week talk about being a child, and he hated it because he had no power, he had no control, he couldn't make any decisions. He was forever being just, forced this and forced that. And he sort of gets it. He's old enough now to know that children are dumb as bells and they do need guidance and all of that kind of thing. But was there things about your upbringing that you feel really prepared you for this work?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. To, the kind of there are three things I can think of immediately to answer that question. One, I had mystical experiences as a child that were unexplainable, that everyone else thought couldn't be real or I was crazy for, but they were in fact very, very real, kind of chronically. So I knew there was an other, right? There was some otherness to this world. There was more than just what we're told exists, and your main mundane 3D world that everyone kind of hyper identifies with in the physical. Um, and then I could tell that there was, growing up in the church, like in a Protestant, Bible Belt type community, there was something that I noticed over and over again that people were missing about what they claimed to follow, like Jesus and his teachings. And I always felt like they were further and further off from what he actually taught. And like, why did he speak in parables always? I was like, if this is supposedly the ultimate messenger to us and teacher, then why is he confounding us with puzzles and riddles? Um, and so I knew there was something there to that people weren't grasping. And that kind of gives you that magnetic center of like a knowingness that there's something more, that there's something that's not being revealed. And then the other thing would be not getting a sense of satisfaction. I think you're just saying like Liam felt like his childhood was not so great. I had some great elements and I had a lot of really traumatic, horrible elements. And but ultimately there was a sense of like, if when you really got sober about it all, you could tell that nothing was ever going to satisfy that desire, right? So there's a sense of something is missing, that like in life on its own terms, you're told, go to school, get good grades, get the job, get married, have kids, do that, be productive. And you can do that for a while, and then you also can realize that there's still something missing. And so those three things were like the perfect recipe, I think, for me to um, come to Gurdjieff's teachings and his work, because it, profoundly, you know, dances around all of those. And as you've been, getting into it yourself. So yeah, that would be kind of the recipe that led to me knowing there must be more, believing, having had experience of it, knowing that most people are wrong about a lot of things. I mean, that's kind of an awakening. It's like people have political awakenings where they realize there's inherent corruption in the system, or money, the legal system, education, but politics, of course. But then
Food,
to
health.
realize too that our identity is also equally skewed, you know, and what we assume we are. And so,
Yeah, exactly. And so it's an ongoing process of disillusionment. I was trying to tell Liam, but I realized like that has to be, anyone, people can tell you that stuff, but if you don't yourself have the experience, it really doesn't land at all. And I'm not trying to take away from him in his own revelations on that, but yeah, that nothing satisfies. Can you define magnetic center for those people who that maybe don't already know what that is? I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So in the work, in the fourth way teachings, which is what Ouspensky's book, definitively codifying Gurdjieff's teachings, um, the, the magnetic center was this idea that some people are magnetized to a higher sense of truth that not everybody is. And those are kind of the only people that can really seek esoteric wisdom. They have an inherent draw to it, and so it's kind of like you look at two pieces of iron, and one could be magnetized and one not. So they both just look like iron, and under a microscope you can't tell, but one of them has a magnetic pull, a field to it. And so that was how they described it. You can look at everybody, and we all look the same, but then inside we're quite different. And the magnetic center means it's a hunger. It's the technically the most technical definition would be that life does not answer itself and does not provide meaning on its own terms, and you have a deep sense of that there's something missing at the linear level that we exist. There's an emptiness to it, and so that pulls you to something that could be outside of it. The way a magnet, you don't see the magnetic field, it's emanating from another plane, right? But that, in physics or metaphysics. So
That's beautiful. I've heard you define that a bunch of times now, and that really landed. I love that. Yeah, yeah. Life doesn't answer itself and provide meaning on its own terms. It just doesn't. You need to be the one to activate that by your hunger for the truth. So amazing. Yeah, really beautiful. So just to let people know, this is the Beth of Fresh Air, episode 27. So that's kind of fun to count, which I never do. And let's see, there's a few chats I've been missing here. And Audrey is here. You're excited to be here. I'm so glad. That is, I believe, your Allie's mom. So sweet. I love it when families show up together. I never had that experience of sharing anything really deep with my family other than my son. And so I'm happy for you guys to have each other. Diane said, I was going to ask Micah, since finding Gurdjieff's work, how it's benefited his life. And we're actually definitely going to go into that. We're going to talk about it. I don't know if you want to jump in or if we should start with some of the topic first.
well, we're definitely going to answer that. So if you want, we'll just put a pin on it. And yeah.
We'll put a pin on it. Exactly. Eliza said he handled the surprise well. That's how you know he's embodied in the practice. Nice. Yeah, exactly. And Diane said something missing has always been a sensation you've had your whole life. There you go. We'll go through phases where it doesn't seem to affect you, and then a time comes when it's all you can think about. That's magnetic center, right? Like you can't get away from it. So yeah, how beautiful. That's exactly the kind of people, when I say I'm looking for rare souls, that's exactly the kind of person that they have, that they've touched down and let themselves feel the pain of emptiness. It is the biggest, most awful pain that is suppressed, and people try to pretend and be in denial of that, and they keep thinking, oh, the next thing, it's going to be it. That sometimes I have people that are signing up for a lot of courses. Maybe they're course junkie a little bit, and they keep thinking, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? And it's not like that, right? So that it's not a question of finding out what's it and what's not it. It's the deepening of your own self-awareness that can potentially come through a lot of things. And yeah, so I don't know if you want to say anything about that, or we should talk about something
There
else.
was something, somebody made a comment earlier when you were first, the kind of, they said, I can't remember who it was, but they said something about seeing things as good and bad, right? And that was something that Gurdjieff put a lot of emphasis on, is to stop judging things as good and bad, because that gets us into that limited, we're only one-sided. Then we're not seeing the bigger picture, like you were already saying earlier. Like, bad things are going to happen, and that's also part of our reality. It's equally a part. The like the shadow and the light are so they're both equal, and so then there's no really need to judge them, and that helps us not identify then, and allow space for them to happen, so that you can then you can bring that consciousness in and ask yourself, well, uh, how can I use this pain to observe myself more, to have more consciousness, which you can. That's actually the best way to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. I was actually really aware of that coming home from Confluence because we had so many beautiful experiences in the travel that are not that common. And I could feel my highness, my happiness, my, emotions. And there was a sense like, I know that this is going to shift. This comes with the other side. This is not, this is not freedom of experience. It's a high frequency. It's matched up with a low frequency. And then inevitably something shows up to reflect that too. So yeah, and it's when people feel like they're, or not that when you feel, but when you start to reckon, what is that for you? When you start to recognize that good and bad really aren't what they appear to be, that we're not trying to get all the good and keep away from the bad. Would you call that neutral? Is that what Gurdjieff would say?
No, because neutral would kind of go into more of the the Eastern, like modern Buddhism, or a lot of like yogi type stuff, where you're trying to be in equanimity all the time. It's not exactly that. It's including both. It's allowing room for both. So it's yes and no, the good and bad. And to realize that, like, here's the other thing, like, I thought about earlier when you were talking about your son, because is he 19? Okay. So when you're 19, it's like you're starting to get the strong sense of who you are, and you're pushing back against a lot of the norms, and you get like a fire to you, and you feel like, I really am figuring things out. This is BS, this person lied. And that's good. But when you're twice that age or more, you'll look back and see you were as 100% certain as you were at that age. You probably know this from your own experience. You were wrong about most everything, right? And it's starting to realize, you see, it's kind of like accepting, like, what feels like the truth to me, what I think is good and bad, as I judge it, I'm not qualified to judge it. And
Yeah.
you know that as a parent, when your child's 3 years old, what they think is bad is often the best possible thing. You know what I mean? You're like, yes, don't touch the hot glowing piece of metal on the stove. They could be so torn up and upset about that because it looks so fun and tasty, and it's really accepting our own ignorance and our immaturity. Yeah.
Right. That's beautiful. Yeah, the inclusion is such a good tool because we push certain things out of our reality, and then it's so expensive to apply that force against the thing that you'd rather not be there.
Yeah.
And then you lose energy to it, and you have to, in order to continue having all your good experiences, it's like gripping with your fingernails all the time, 24/7. And then still the bad comes and you feel like you
Mhm.
failed and you're not good enough and you can't win. Those are all programs that people don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, just the inclusion, expanding awareness to include what is, right?
Mhm.
Reality. Oh, reality. We love that stuff. Can I share one more little snippet from Confluence? Okay, so this might not be popular. We had a chance to see Charles Eisenstein, and he is an extremely popular podcaster. People love him. They get all mushy about him. And he came on, Liam, and I made him stay for this talk. And in the first 5 minutes, he talked about, isn't this amazing that we can show up and have this consensual reality? That we can agree that there was a pandemic, that it's all, fake and gay, and that we're creating our own reality. And Liam and I looked at each other and it's like, we're out of here. Because that's not what I subscribe to, not even a little bit. I don't want consensual reality. That's just another version of what's fake. And then I heard Joel Schaefer give his talk, very different. He's also talking about realities, different alternative realities, that he has tools and techniques for actually exploring through the consciousness. That's a whole other subject. But he's talking about real stuff, not consensual, not made up, not fake and gay, just because we decide all to have the same illusion. And so yeah, let's stay with reality. I'm a big proponent of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, reality, we don't see it. I mean, that's a lot of what the Gurdjieff work is, to first realize that you're blind to it and you don't even see it. And the way we're brought up in our the polarity model that we have of thinking and identifying and everything. We're, you know, as you know, in the Beelzebub's Tales, Kunda Buffer, we're blinded all the time by reality. We have a false sense of reality, and just like we have a false sense of who we are. And that's the big illusion to break through. That's the thing that but it's difficult and it doesn't seem accurate, you know, to the senses. But the truth is, just as how there are many things you and I don't see that exist, like all the other frequencies and waves and many other things. We know they're there, but we can't see them. And so centrally, they don't seem to exist, but they're actually quite real, like just like the internet signals that we're, you know, communicating to you right now. And it's really a humbling sensation that you have to kind of come to. But when you were talking about the speech there from Eisenstein, it gives people a sense of control and it feeds false personality. That's the whole new age postmodern thinking, is I'm basically God, or nothing matters or makes sense anyway. It's like either nihilism or megalomania, but they both give a sense of control, right? Like either nothing matters, so I'm smart enough to see that, so screw you, or I'm basically God controlling everything. And you know, and I know you know that from like many gurus and stuff that you would have interacted with. It's a very seductive thing that, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, megalomaniac is the right word. You feel so powerful, but it's a feeling,
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah, yeah. And so many people are here. Let's see what Diane has been saying, that she feels it's important to really feel that happy when it's occurring, and not necessarily tell ourselves it won't last, but to hug it like a child loving his toy or parent or pet. Yeah, nice. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like a negative, oh, this is going to turn into a bad thing. It's the discrimination that they come as a pair. There's, you know, you're just not going to get to that place where you only have good feelings. It's not like that.
No. And, you know, biologically, like there are people that lose their ability to feel pain. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's a real medical condition where, or they can have a certain type of paralysis, but there's also a neuropathy that happens. And that's extremely dangerous because the body, without that ability, you just get inevitably injured and hurt, and you don't realize that you're hurting yourself. The same thing's happening with the emotions. Like we don't understand that the negative one, like all these things exist. What we see is emotional pain. It has its own reasons for existing. And because we identify with it, though, we feel like it's something that consumes us and takes us over, instead of realizing that it's just part of life and we don't have to attach to it, you know? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of the beginning of that.
One of my favorite discoveries from reading or listening to The Fourth Way has been about the emotions, because that's a very big part of the work that I do. And just this little nugget that what we consider to be the emotions, they are Gurdjieff calls the negative emotions, and that they have an artificial center, that they're not actually part of the natural structure. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, so any emotion that has a polarity is basically then a negative or false emotion. The higher emotions, which exist on the higher planes, are unified. So all of the normal emotions that we mechanically experience through life, the ups and downs, you know, euphoria, depression, you know, they all have opposites because they're a pendulum swing. So they're bifurcated. And so that's one of the first things to realize, is like even what we think are emotions are only mechanical associative experiences that you can have that trigger your hormones and all that. But higher emotions go beyond the physical, and so they are experienced outside of pure biology, and that's, you know, which wouldn't even be acknowledged by most mainstream, you know, science, like that. But there are those are what would be called real emotions which we don't access, or we have very rare glimpses of. But what we think are emotions are what he calls the negative ones, or the false ones, or the mechanical ones. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the way that I test those to see are they actually real or not real is, can I let them go?
Yeah.
Because if I can let them go, then it doesn't have a basis in reality, or it's a transient version of reality. And even just to pick on Diane a little bit, enjoying those emotions. I had a lot of incredibly good emotion last night in my revelation, and I was recognizing it, and I was aware of the full moon. And if you haven't come across this yet, that the moon actually feeds on us. We in our normal mechanical way of life, we're busy feeding the moon with our emotions. And so I recognize this. Okay, it's full moon and I'm full of this incredibly powerful, beautiful emotion. And I could just like milk it and suck it up and like lavish in it and all of that kind of thing. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna just feel like I'm just for fun, I'm gonna let this go. And I think I was able to spare myself, a really big moon feeding or whatever. And then inevitably, the dark side comes up. I had a few demonic attacks last night, stronger than I've ever had. And, the crazy self-thinking that doesn't seem to be part of my normal inner world anymore and that kind of thing. And luckily I was just so deep into the trust God full stop that it was of no consequence. Just went to bed, had like the best sleep ever, actually. So,
Great. Well, good to stand guard and awareness. Gurdjieff talked about how the idea of remembering yourself or becoming more conscious is like being on fire watch when you're camping in the wilderness at night. And you have to stay awake to make sure the animals aren't coming, that the fire is tended, but inevitably, you fall asleep and then those things, they start to show right back up. And we just have to remember, like, oh, I've fallen asleep. I've allowed this stuff to, come back, tend to the fire, bring consciousness back to it. And that drives the animals away.
very nice. Good metaphor. That's awesome. So you started to talk about identity and that really is the could you call it the core foundational error or problem that we have? Maybe error is the wrong word.
Well, I mean, he would say that the only emotion man has at first is identity, because we don't. So what happens is, through our mechanical personality that we inevitably inherit from our family, from our environment, like and it's part of the program, right? Like this is part of why we're here. When we do that, these these exist. All of these channels exist, kind of like keys on an instrument. Like when one is pressed, it sends a vibration, and actually a very complicated one. It would almost be like you hit a key and then it triggers many notes, right, being played. um and the we don't realize that that is all completely mechanical and artificial because of identification. When it happens, we then think, I am doing this. It's just like a simple way would be with thoughts. A lot of people think they are their thoughts, right? And a lot of different therapy technique, you're trying to learn to separate, like, from your thoughts and realize, well, just because I had this disturbing thought, that doesn't mean that I actually did it. It showed up, it had a thought. So the identification is when we place that sense of I in something that's not us. But that's what we've learned to do, and that's what the vast majority of people never separate from at all, and they go to their grave fully identified with this thing that they thought they were, which they actually aren't. The machine that they're embodied. Yeah.
Right, right. So that leads us around to false personalities, which I know we've talked about a little bit, but
Mhm.
these aren't subjects that you can just brush over and say, I got it.
No.
It's not like that. This is as deep as I've ever come across personally.
Mhm.
And so would you mind to define for those who've never even heard this term before what a false personality is?
Yeah. So in Gurdjieff's teachings, the false personalities are um, they are completely mechanical associations that have their own energy and they consume it. They're like automatons inside of you. So they're programs, but programs that almost have their own little weak will. Okay. And so they fight. What they ultimately feed off of is your your highest consciousness, the consciousness is emanating outside of physical space, right? They can only feed off of that. They're like parasites, and they all fight and clamor to take control of your sense of I, right? Some work together, some fight each other. The illusion that we have is that we are one, that we are always the one person, and it sounds completely crazy to people at first. It's very shocking, but the truth is, and through the process of self-observation and the stuff like that, that like the things that we'd be doing in a workshop, beginning to teach people those tools to access them, to get the flavor of them, to see how they operate, you can in fact begin to verify that you are not one person. And it's a scary, spooky thing that's ultimately very liberating, because you start realizing, wait, so other programs have been running the show. I've just been asleep. It's like you're in a movie theater and you're watching the movie and you're identified with the actors and you're like, oh, my heart aches because they got, they had their heart broken in the scene, or oh, they're in danger. I'm in danger. It's exactly like that. It's just at an even better illusion than a movie theater, where you are so identified with the narratives and the story. And then they come and go, just like characters in a movie. They come and they show up, they take over the scene. Your feelings go right with them. Your sense of I then gets placed on that person. And so the trick is to begin to become aware of when the switching is happening and what those eyes are feeding off of and what they're draining you of, because each one is very parasitic. And yeah, so that's kind of the big mystery school revelation from Gurdjieff. The Gurdjieff work is first taking people into that experience of seeing and verifying, wow, I thought I was one and I'm not.
Exactly. And it's confounded by the New Age teaching of oneness, which is not just, Jesus taught about oneness. I and the Father are one. It's not actually wrong, but it gets applied to this conglomeration of false personalities. Now, how do they form in the first place?
Well, you're born in essence. When you incarnate as an infant, you are one. You are an essence, and then the mechanical parts of the biology, the brain, and the psyche itself create programs by emulating and we've used this example, but I think it's just the easiest one for people to get, is like when they're walking or driving a car, how they can become that is so baked into their body and their brain and their nervous system, that they can be completely on autopilot. You can be thinking, I mean, all of us can usually walk and talk and not ever once think about how we're walking, right? We just think about, oh, I need to run across the street, the red lights, about to change or something like that. We don't think left foot, move this far, raise knee. But that's what you're doing as an infant until you build those. That's when you're watching a child walk. They don't have any of that yet. They're not mechanical enough yet. And as we do that, we're doing it physically, which is the easiest to see: driving a car, typing, all kinds of things like that, eating. But what you don't understand, that's incredibly jarring, is that your speaking is that. Who you think you are is that. Your thinking, your feelings. And when you start to realize, like, wow, all of this is in your work, a program. This is programmed into me. I didn't realize that it was running on automatic. I just thought it was me. And we've identified with it. And that's kind of the crux of it. And it starts, and by the time we're 5 or 6 years old, we're pretty hardened. A lot of these things have really crystallized in. By the time you're fully an adult, I mean, you are just hard. You are like almost a hermetically sealed shell of titanium or something, and then it's like hopeless at that point for most people, because there's no concept. It's like, oh, of course, this is who I am. People have a sense of who they are. This is my background, but they don't realize that it's all false.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because we've identified so deeply, then it feels to be who you are. So that's part of the terror when you come up against that, and a potential even choice that, oh, maybe this isn't me, or this certainly isn't in my favor, working for me. Then the because it feels like you, it seems retarded to let it go. Why would I do that? Why would I let my hand or my arm or my eyes go? They're just part of me. So this is the clear discrimination work, where when you get to see that, not just think about it and the idea of it, it won't help you. But when you look and you see, oh, that is in fact not authentically and foundationally who I am. And that's when you're prepared to make a new decision.
Yeah, and everybody, I think everyone listening could relate to the experience of doing something when they were in a state, either emotion, stress, neurotic, that they regret later and they feel like, why did I do that? They might apologize. They may not apologize, but still regret it. But where you feel like I wasn't in my right mind, you see, and
Yeah.
but it's starting to realize that you're doing that all the time, that you're almost always just that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll use a little example from Confluence. I ran into a colleague and I hadn't seen them for a long time. And they kept looking at me and looking away. And there was some kind of thing. And I already had a head full of, I don't know which personality was in charge of this, judging people that wouldn't speak out since 2020. And he had a large audience. He knew the truth, and I could see behind the scenes that the guy was involved in groups, but he would not say one word to his public. He was terrified of losing his business, and because that's his number one kind of thing. And of course, we all have to do that. You can't fault someone for it. So when I finally saw him, I actually hit him with my hat, and I said, like, "Hey, it's me." I won't use his name to malign him or anything like that. And I would never ever do this, but some false personality came up in me and gave him heck for it. Like, you have a responsibility, you have an audience, you know the truth, because it made it seem, my false personality made it seem like he was kind of a fraud. Here he was at the truther community wanting to be seen as a truther, but then he wouldn't say one word to his audience. And, so I gave him some straight talking on that. I never do that anymore. And you could feel it was like intense and heavy. And I did regret it. And I owe him an apology because I know it was an injury and he avoided me for the rest of the conference. Again, maybe there was some other reasons for that too in advance. But I could just, it's like you say, you look back and you go like, who did that?
Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is that you regret it and and you can feel that you are going into an old program. Our default for something like that is to then justify it. We make an account of why it was correct, and then we double down on it to get even more and more integrated with it, which is what most people do. Like, they lash out in anger or in jealousy, and then what they're doing is they have to make up reasons why they were right to do it because they actually deep down feel really terrible.
That's it. It's the pride,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what I heard as I woke up in the morning. God said, "Beth, that's the pride." Like
Mhm.
that's like, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. So what are other clear signs that false personalities are running? I had in the notes things like indecision or being at a terminal crossroads where you never do take one path or the other, maybe, relationship issues. What other kinds of things?
They all feed on negative emotions in some way, and it doesn't sound like that. And that's one of the most profound things from the Gurdjieff work and method is realizing that he said negative emotions rule the world, not sex, not power, not greed. It's negative emotions, and you don't understand because the false personalities are highly addicted to them. They need that. They need that polarity of energy. So one of the telltale signs would be when you feel that. And sometimes it might feel like a positive at first, but inevitably it needs that pendulum to swing and churn that energy that it feeds off of. It could start out as a mania and then turn into a despair or a depression. Um, and just like the one you were just sharing about the kind of lashing out or correcting the guy, probably felt empowering at first and then icky and gross later. You see, like,
Exactly.
and this is where the conscious, which is tied to the higher self, starts to help you navigate that. And you, through enough work in this method, you get to where you can taste them more in real time and learn the flavor of them and how to quickly disengage them before they get to express themselves.
There you go. I want to get on my phone and apologize right now, but I'll do it later. And I could even feel that. I'm like, I hope Micah supports me. And I saw Lisa's message. She says, calling a bro out, he probably needs to toughen up. And, so we really do want to justify that stuff. But the pain was real and the message was clear. From my side, it's integrity with me. Myself. It's not really about him, so to speak. You want to say something?
I was just going to say, when you say that, see, it's not the thing itself that was wrong. It's that you're noticing that you identified when you did it.
Yeah.
That's
And
the problem. It's not what you did. Like what she just said. Maybe he needed to be put in place. It might not have been a bad thing. It's not. We're not judging that. What we learn to differentiate and discern is, oh, I was mechanical there. I didn't. I had no consciousness there. It took over. Right or wrong. Right. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I had another version of that that same pride, and it's very powerful. I think I could have cut somebody's head off when they wouldn't let Liam and I sit together on the very last flight home, and I was going up one side of this woman and down the other side, and I was going to force her, and I know I wasn't even making sense to myself, but energetically I could have killed her. I know I could have. And then all of a sudden I was self-aware through it. And then finally, or not finally, but I just like, okay, Beth, just drop it and sit down and rest. And then I apologized to the woman because she came back and like, oh, I'm so sorry you couldn't. And I'm like, you know what? It's totally fine. I was out of line. Thanks for your understanding, and set that straight. So
Yeah.
go
That's
ahead.
great. Well, I was just gonna say when you said that, there's there's that saying where Jesus said, but if you so much as thought evil about your brother, you've committed murder, right? Thought the violence. That's what it's saying. See, you could feel within you did it.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you actually acted on it, but you could feel, oh, I went to the murderous place in me.
I
That's the
really
place of
did.
evil, right? Like that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really did. Oh man. I want to go back and uh, respond to these comments before we lose them. Let's see, Lisa, did we read this one? If you describe yourself, introduce yourself to people, and it sounds boring, would that be a sign to redefine the past or the future? Or is that just less important? I lost the context there, but what do you think, Micah?
Well, it's interesting because it's, people that do a lot of work within the fourth way, they'll say that the more you develop your consciousness and become real, the more boring you actually become to everyone else. So I don't know that boring. See, boring is like, well, what role are you trying to play, right? Now you could consciously choose to not be boring, right? Just like playing an actor, being consciously acting to play a character. Maybe you're selling something and you're like, hey, I really gotta. But the reality is, it can be quite boring to people when you are truly present and when you're not, because their false personality feeds on other false personalities. It doesn't like real very much. So, like this conversation would probably be boring to a great deal of people.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And there's a big difference between being boring and being bored. Bored is more like apathy, checked out, not caring. That's a very negative emotion. But being boring is that you're just not full of triggers. You're not as reactive as you may have been in another time, and then so the drama isn't there. They can't spark you in the same kind of way. Yeah. So thank you for that. And Audrey's asking, is there a frequency or vibration behind this feeling of emptiness? It's a great question too.
I'm not sure which. Can you elaborate when you say this feeling of emptiness? Are you talking about the feeling of something is missing, or like you feel kind of a depressed, empty? I'm not. I don't.
I
I don't
think
think I understand which one you're referring to.
I'm pretty sure that's what she was referring to, is that magnetic center when you wake up to that emptiness. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then what that is the pull into a higher plane. You're seeking a higher center, realizing like, oh, what I need to gravitate toward isn't here. So the body interprets it as emptiness, but it's actually not. It's that you want to be filled with something more substantial. You just don't know how to find it yet.
Right. And we might just need another word because emptiness can also, like, say, in my world, it's a shadow of the hedonist archetype that uses pleasure in order to try to fill that emptiness, but it actually gets more empty as you go. And it is akin to, again, apathy, of having that like void of feeling, just not having your senses tuned in. You don't have emotion. Many people end up medicated to that place, and it is a frequency, it is a vibration in that context. But I know you're talking about the other version of that's actually magnetic center. Lisa said, I mean, you are bored of your own self-description story. Beautiful.
Well,
Nice.
that could be good.
That's right. Exactly.
Because then you're not identified. Like the point is to become more present. Like, why do we need a story? Because if you can bring consciousness to the moment, that's the most beautiful thing you could do, is to be actually present, and that gives a sense of, it vivifies everything, where things become more, clear. And people, I mean, if somebody's real, they're going to appreciate that more than your story.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, they get that. We get that. We don't know why we get that. Children get that. Old people get that. Random strangers, they understand when you're
Yeah,
real.
children don't need a story. They need your presence. And when you have it, they gravitate towards you because they still have that essence in them. As adults, it's like we feel like we have to come with a sales pitch in this court, here's my story and why I've overcome all this. And I think that's all that does, is feed false personality. So it's not that you can't tell a story. It's like it wouldn't matter anyway. I mean, why are we want to get to a place where we're not trying to judge all of that, because really we're not qualified to.
Mm, nice. I like that. And yeah, Elisa said that's what she meant. It was like I was servicing him and his audience. I hope there's some of that in there too. That would be awesome. And Audrey said something that she's missing. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you want to say more there, but if there's any other question in that. And yeah, so what is it like when what starts to happen for anyone that hasn't done this work? It's very rare. Like, I asked all weekend, have you heard of Gurdjieff, or do you know Gurdjieff's work? And I actually asked my friend Miguel Connor, who's I've had him on before a few times at least. And because he's very into Gnosticism. And I said, oh, do you like Gurdjieff? I've got the best interview for you. I was going to recommend you, Micah. And you could feel the sort of like bitter taste that came through, and like, yeah, heard of him, but no, it was definitely a no to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Is there a good conflict? How could you summarize that?
Well, it would be very opposite of Gnosticism. Yeah. Well, it's not for again, it's a lot of us are quite happy with our stories and our narratives and our fantasies and what we want to believe. A lot of people are very happy with their beliefs. Gurdjieff would be about not having beliefs anymore. It'd be like about just understanding the truth and trying to resonate more and more with the truth, versus belief. And but I think, just like with politics, culture, religion, philosophy, people want to believe things because it gives that sense of control.
I'm going to challenge people to not as a way to judge anyone, but go through your day and listen to how many people start their position, their opinion, their conversation with "I believe." There's somebody online that I keep trying to assist. Every time she's there, she's saying, "I'm sick with this. My kids are sick with that. We're suffering. We're struggling." And then so I come in with a little message about something, always LYL, of course, and you try to gently just, oh, you might want to look. It's not parasites aren't your problem. It's metals, and she always responds, "Well, I believe." And I was trying to call her out a little bit on the germ theory stuff, because she was going, "Oh, we all have whooping cough." And I'm like, "But you host Andy Kaufman every year at your conference there. And I guess it's not authentic, your choice of him." "Oh, well, I believe they all coexist, that there's this and there's this, and then, the germ theory and the viruses and blah, 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 blah." And so, yeah, it's just, I'm not in the business of dismantling beliefs. That I could never do that. You can fight all day long until someone decides they're going to dismantle their own belief. But what a relief to live without beliefs. I'm sure there are many I'm not aware of that are just behind the scenes, but I don't have to be out there fighting for the imagination of how I think reality is.
Yeah. Well, to realize first that you don't see reality, and that see, that's the thing. If you can come to that point, kind of like as an adult looking back as a child, see how much were you wrong about, you know? Yeah, like, and so then you start realizing, like, okay, what if I'm having that experience right now? What if it's like you're seeing through a fog of war. You can only see so far ahead of you. There's only so much certainty that you can even have. You don't see the big picture. The esoteric stuff is about awakening to that reality and then learning how to actually begin to see reality. but it first comes with realizing I don't see it at all. I'm not seeing what's real at all. And that's Plato's cave has existed as a perfect allegory because it's very accurate. We're looking at the shadow. Are you familiar with that one?
Can you say it like it goes in passing? I don't remember it in detail.
To summarize real quickly, it's like at first we wake up and we've been watching shadow puppets on the wall of a cave, and that's where the base level of consciousness of society and mankind exists. We're in the allegory. We're prisoners. We're prisoners chained down there in the cave. But we've got this puppet show that we think is our reality. But through a process, eventually you can get past that to see there are guys behind you puppeteering things. So this is like the controllers, the administration, that kind of stuff. And then eventually you can go out of the cave and the actual sun is there into the real light, right? So there's the first light, which is the fire, which is really the false light. And then the true light, which we don't even have access to because we're in an artificial reality. And so it's a matrix of sorts, but it exists within you. It's not exterior. There are things that take advantage of it exteriorly, like politically, culturally, but we're doing it to ourselves inside, and that's the potency of it, is to see that it's in you, that you are living as a prisoner in a fake, but it satisfies you as long as you stay in that trance, which is what we call sleep. You love the puppet show.
Exactly.
Right?
You're attached to that puppet show. You think you need that puppet show, and that your very survival depends on it. That's how
Yes.
tenacity, or how tenacious people can be with it. Like it's their life depends on it.
Well, because their beliefs do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything shattered when you realize, wait, it was just a puppet show. Like I really liked that character. I
Wah,
really,
wah, wah.
yeah, right. Right. It's that's an ego death. That's terrifying to people, like to realize that so much that they assumed was so important. And it's the same thing as physical identification. If you identify with your wealth and your riches, well, are you taking that with you when you die? See, there's an illusion of that in a way, right? There's an illusion of wealth in that way. Yeah. Or achievement. Yeah.
You can see it in a crowd where I have, maybe a little behind the scenes knowledge of who's successful and who's not. And the more successful people are, the more established they are financially, the more they won't necessarily be able to access any of that fear of not surviving. It's like it doesn't exist for them.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Diane said, genuine connections seem to be missing these days. And you have no time or energy for drama, complaints, and negative talk because you're probably more boring than you used to be, Diane, and I mean that in a beautiful way. I have the most amazing connections, though, with animals and nature. Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually, Gurdjieff, we talked about you practice on animals, right? Because it's easier to form the connection there. They have less of a false personality, so to speak, even though they don't have the level of intellect, and they're only 2 brain beings instead of 3 brain beings, as you know in the his teachings. But that's there's an emptiness that you can experience where you see everything is mechanical and people are asleep and it's all small talk and autopilot, and you can see, oh, I said the word football, now this person's going to talk about football for 43 minutes. And it's just like watching when a dog gets horny, something triggers its little hardwiring and it has to go hump something, and you start seeing that in people, like, oh, that got triggered in you and now you have to act out on it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's just more exaggerated, that the animal doesn't have the ability to censor and go like, maybe it's not really that socially correct to hop the chair, or that guest's leg.
Well, you're the most boring person at a cocktail party if you're not gonna go into the niceties of where are you from, what do you do, and just feed into that, and I love the weather in San Francisco, and you go on, and you realize, like, it's all automatic. Nothing meaningful happens. You might feel a bond when you realize, oh, we have the same hobby.
Right.
Wow, they really like sushi too. That was cool. Like, but most of it's wasted energy.
Exactly. And I think one of the things on the other side that I've started to glimmer about is that you can do that. You can have the, less than in-depth conversation. You can have those, but it's not that you are identifying with it. You're just, I don't know, it's like out of compassion or out of connection or, just an opening, because otherwise getting to the deep stuff, you generally have to start somewhere on the outside. And so I don't even have an aversion to small talk anymore. I'm realizing that used to be really hard
Well,
on
the
me.
aversion would be the program too. It's like, why avert it? It's just when you see it as mechanical. So you, according to the word, you can do anything you want as long as you can remember yourself.
Boom.
See, like, it's like if you want to engage in small talk because the TSA person, you realize that's the best strategy for me to get through this so they're not triggered and giving me a hard time because I'm going to miss my flight in 5 minutes. I'll just be pleasant with them instead of react to their rudeness or whatever they did. If you consciously did it, then of course, see, in esoteric Christianity, sin is missing the mark. Missing the mark means when you have fallen out of consciousness, you go into the mechanical. That's what it is to miss the mark. You've fallen off again, right? It's like breaking a meditation. So as long as you know that you're doing it, then that's conscious acting.
There you
It's
go.
not like evil that you did it. It's just like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna say the niceties and go through. Yes, the weather. Oh wow, it's so hot here in Houston. Yeah, I hear you. Oh, it looks like you've got a long day. I'll bet your shift doesn't end soon. It doesn't matter. It's not wrong as long as you're aware.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm finding one of the harder habits to break now is the association. Like you said, if someone just mentions a single word that I can relate to and expound upon, or just converse about, that we're always looking for the association. What's the alternative to that?
To notice it and then decide, like, well, if I were to give into this, I would just be doing what's mechanical, which is then going to pull me into sleep. Because once you go into that, see, the grooves are worn. And once you start going down into the grooves, it's much more likely the grooves are going to take you away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you kind of, it's better oftentimes, like, to just practice not doing it. Oh, I had the impulse because she brought up that she used to be a bartender in Seattle and I had a grandfather in Seattle and I love Seattle. Do you see what I mean? Like, whatever the association was that triggered that, realized, oh, that was just a groove worn in my psyche, an associated memory that was then triggered this nostalgia that made me want to talk about it. So maybe I reserve my energy and keep my consciousness by not going that path.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's doing work. That would be beginning to do work, working against the mechanical, which generates energy.
Exactly. You'd have to suffer your own silence where you want to fill in the blank, because that's how conversations go and how airtime works and everything like that, right? So yeah, very cool. I love that. Elisa said, passively watching trance or walk out and interact, seek the sun. I lost the context for that. Sorry, Elisa. Artist Seer, nice to see you. I got to meet you in person, give you a great big hug and get a big hug from you. And she's saying it's great to meet you. You have another girlfriend that you and I are into the nutrition detective and forgot to tell you. Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. I consider those people that are brave enough to look into that material at a, I don't know, it seems like advanced to me, because not everybody can even hear it. They get mad. They don't want it. So, yeah. And you had to look up three brain beings when you started reading Beelzebub. Yeah, that was my first question too. I texted Micah and said, "Are the three brains the heart, the mind, and the gut?" And it's close, right? It's like
Essentially, instinctive. So moving instinctive center, the emotional and the intellectual. Yeah.
Right. The moving instinctive being that example of the baby that when they don't have to have every single lift of the knee and turn of the foot involved in walking, then that's their instinctual kind of body growing. Hey.
Yeah. There's three separate minds, and realizing that they don't directly communicate and they operate in tandem and they can work against each other. The more you dig into that, the more you realize, like, why we have any type, a lot of times we have resistance. We have a lot of, because they're not all three agreeing on something. You with your intellect think, oh, this, but the emotional center is like, no way, I'm out. And the physical one has its own opinion. And that's why that, and you don't realize that, like, oh, I'm not in control. Oh, okay.
This is another big sign of the false personalities, that you're in a state of inner conflict, that you literally are arguing with yourself or shit talking yourself. And, one is just, I want to be happy. And the other one is like, oh, do your work. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you sit down for 7 hours or something like that? And so it's a constant war inside.
Yeah, and so when Gurdjieff first started to, his first institute was the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man, and so the idea of becoming man number 4 out of the 7 in the work is to balance all three to where they're all three operating in tandem together and unified, which is incredibly difficult, because that's not the case. And that's our human experience, is that we feel divided all the time about much. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's caused for a great deal of energy loss in the process. Yeah. If anyone doesn't know who, the reference there to Beelzebub, that is Gurdjieff's work. It is a, 1,300-page book she's reading, that I think is so fantastic that she took it on. I took it on as the audio, a 48-hour audio, and it was amazing to get to the end of that. And yours, Elisa, said that mine was Plato's Cave reference comparison. Yeah, I really appreciated hearing the details there, because in my mind I had made the right meaning, but I didn't know the details of that. So that's very cool. Random thought. Diane said, I wonder if being a bored person could be the reason why some are alcoholics. They feel different and alone. Being drunk takes them away from their reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it does. I mean, what does alcohol do? Alcohol turns off parts of access to the mind. It increases like serotonin, dopamine. So you have a shutting down of lots of the intellect, especially the judgmental parts. And then you also get a positive feeling. So absolutely, and that's a lot better to most people than being born, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Boredom is the enemy for a lot of people. They're at the mercy, unfortunately, of all the things. The entertainment industry capitalizes on your boredom. And children, when they complain bitterly that they're bored, a really strong parent will go, good for you. That's awesome. And something will come of that. They will invent a way out of the boredom, rather than some fake remedy that just leaves them more dead inside. Yeah. Not that I'm invulnerable to that, but yeah, very good. So one of the things I was going to ask you about, just again back on the theme of this episode of Beth of Fresh Air, number 27, is about when people say come from a very powerful event such as Confluence. They had a lot of experiences, they learned things, they feel transformed, even by just the connection and the love that maybe we're not used to receiving all the time, because a lot of us have been estranged from friends and family in the last years. And you can feel like you're a different person than when you showed up to that thing. And so then the question of, oh, well, I need to hold on to it. How do I keep the transformation? How do I return with the goods that I got? And I do hear a lot of people say, oh, the effects waned, and it wasn't really, I had to go back for more. That can be another, like, oh, addiction kind of, I go there for my transformation kind of thing. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't expect you to bring that up, but that's a good, actually, yes. So what's happening is the source of your positive feeling is not coming from you, right? You're feeding off of an energy that was given to you because of an experience, right? We got new impression. They're known as impressions in the work, right? And other people's heightened states and energy, or their wisdom and their solidarity positively affects you, but it's not, you're not generating it. And so then it leads to a crash inevitably. And that's where people become the event junkies, right? Because they're chasing that high. Like, man, I felt so good for a whole week and I felt enlightened and I felt happy, like my life had meaning. And then as I got back on my own, it felt more and more empty again. It was all gone. What what the work can do, the Gurdjieff teachings and method is to get to where you can do that within yourself, and you work with others. There's a way of doing it, but that profound experience, and no one's alone. A lot of people think there's something wrong with them. That's one of the things I've noticed. They go to an event like that, or they experience a really high level teaching or a workshop, and they're blown away and their life has changed. But then a week later, they're pretty sure they feel maybe even worse. That's normal. That's because you are getting it artificially. And kind of like, in a way, if you read in Search of the Miraculous, which I know you have, there's the first awakening experience that Ouspensky had, which totally freaked him out, otherworldly. And then when he brought it up to Gurdjieff kind of showed him that he said, well, don't you want to know how to do this for yourself? Because it was really the Gurdjieff's energy had affected him, right? To where in his presence, to where he was able to have that. So it's a normal thing. Like it really is. That makes us. People do that with church services. They go and they in an hour they've had song and a message and prayer and all these things, and they feel euphoric. And then the rest of the week, it's like they sink back down. And it's the same. It's the same kind of thing. Is you're kind of drawing it off of other people. It's not. It just gives you a temporary lift, but it's not something that's coming from you.
Right, right. Like around Alex World, they always talk about that Austin's experiments. I'm not putting this down at all, but they're saying, oh, you put a pasture egg and you put a store-bought egg or crappy egg, and you put them together, and the crappy egg actually gains coherence from the free range egg or
Mhm.
the happy egg, whatever
Mhm.
kind of thing. And so there's a state change. And this is something that I'd like to make the distinction between the change of a state and transformation. They are not the same.
Mhm.
And that's the mistake people make when, oh, now I feel happy, I have transformed. And then all of a sudden they feel unhappy and it's like, oh, I lost my transformation. Where did it go? Like this, right? But that's the big thing, to recognize the difference between a state and actual, like how would you language all that?
Well, state, that's a good word, because we're associated with a feeling. And the problem is we don't understand that what we are calling feelings have inevitable pendulum swings. It's not possible. You cannot, when you have so like in your model, you have apathy and peace, right? They're the opposites.
Yeah, I call them chords.
Right. And what you have to realize is they are just like a magnet with its own polarity. They're all the magnet. There is no peace without apathy.
Exactly.
There's no positive without the negative side of the toroid, right? That generates the magnetic. So that what we perceive though is that somehow we can go only in one direction. We can have only positive or only negative polarity. We can have only peace or only apathy. When you actually can't. And like you probably know this too, people can be so apathetic for so long that they then gain a sense of peace for a while.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
turns into a piece, right? Because it's just a slow pendulum swing, right? But you start realizing that's inevitable. That's metaphysics right there, and physics both.
Right, right. And I think that's exactly what happens. People do get into peace and they hang around with a lot of people in peace, and then they have this peaceful emotion, and then and then the apathy side of it pushes up against them, and then they feel depressed and they feel like there's no meaning and that life is empty, but not the good magnetic center kind of emptiness.
And they don't see, and this is critical in the work. The fourth way is to see them that they're the same.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to bring consciousness when you're in one, from one to the other. So when you're in the apathy, you realize, well, peace is on the other side of this, and vice versa. You just start to become aware, like you're evoking a physics. It's like playing with fire. Fire is wonderful and it heats, but it also hurts and destroys, right? And you start respecting it. These emotions and states is what they are. They're like fire. They have
Mm.
consequences, right? You get euphoric, there's going to be consequences.
Wow. That's so deep. I love that. Amazing. Yeah, and people will blame like, oh, well, my family's not awake, and then I work at a job where people aren't awake, and then I'm an empath, so then I get all of their feelings in me, and it's the environment. I just need to be in the perfect environment, and in a way, you do because that will allow you to have the disillusionment that because you'll see it's not the solution or the be all or end all of anything. Very good. Let's see. Hello, Astral Pill. Nice to have you here. The telepathy story from ISOM. What is that? ISOM? I don't know.
In search of the miraculous.
Oh, thank you.
So good. Yeah, they know that. Yeah.
Right on. Nice. All those acronyms. Very good. I thought that was related to Confluence something. Oops. And thank you, Jackie K. Nice to have you here. You always remind people. It does help me. And it's funny, I was on Facebook the other day and I got a little bit of traction, which I don't get on Facebook. I get so few engagements these days on that platform, but for some reason they liked my trip. And then I noticed they were actually docking likes from posts, and I go back and I'm making screenshots, and then they reappeared for some reason. But anyway, so that's my world of this illusory world. It's fun to go into the real world because I find out people actually do know me and they are watching the podcast, even if I have no clue. So it really helps me if you guys come in and say hello in a chat or a comment or something like that. Lisa said the reason you like Confluence because it inspires you to go back and believe in your dream, to contribute in your little corner of the world the same way everyone else in this same way everyone else in the stage. Something like that. I think I get that. Yeah. Mangled your comment. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being around people that you like. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a natural part of life. But if it's an identification that somehow your state, your freedom, your transformation is out there rather than here where the work can be done, you can't do the work out there. You never can. This is the only place that we can do it. Then you won't blame your environment for that. So thank you. And Diane said, could we say that if we seek only the happy, that would lead to stagnancy instead of growth?
Yeah, it leads to mechanical suffering.
Right. Exactly.
Happiness can exist as a byproduct of you doing the work on yourself, raising your consciousness, generating a sense of meaning. You can experience happiness. It can be a gift. But when you seek happiness for its own sake, it only leads to mechanical suffering, inevitably.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it. You got it. So let's see if there was anything else So what does it look like for somebody? How would you describe, maybe you have some people in mind that have gone through and done some of this work on the false personalities, on letting those go? What does actually fundamentally change for them in the process?
At first, nothing. But so one time, Araj, who is he was the editor of actually Beelzebub's Tales and Gurdjieff's work.
Wow.
AJ Araj, yeah, he was asked by some students of his, like, well, if I were to, it sounds like if I studied this work and I applied it, I would become a better writer. Is that true? And he said, yeah, but not at first. And he was like, at first you might become a worse writer because there's the awkwardness of the undoing, right? And so at first it's things might be a little weird, right? Like you can be drawn though to a sense of meaning, like when you verify, like, wow, this is the truth, this is liberating. And then you can accept it, like, okay, there's going to be some ups and downs, just like when you're learning any new skill set, like if you never played golf before, like there's going to be an awkward, weird learning curve, and it's not like golf is going to be fun for any immediate, it's hard to swing that club and make it line up with the ball and make it do it for anyone that's ever tried to golf, right? But the reward comes in time. And I think that at first if there's a benefit at first, it would be in a sense of meaning and possibility, of having a freshness about reality, where reality kind of gets turned upside down on you and you're like, oh my God. And then it's humbling. So that's good. But I'd call that positive. I would say it's quite positive. But eventually it will lead to you having an immense amount more energy. And you already know this even from, because I remember you telling me after you listen to the audio of Beelzebub's Tales, you felt like you could pay more attention to other things because that's so difficult. Yeah. You start to get to where you're liberated. The gospel concept, esoterically, is that the good news is that you have a right not to be negative, right?
Beautiful.
And you start to realize the power that's there. There's freedom there, right? Freedom emerges as you learn, oh my God, I've had this parasitic draw. But at first we're powerless. We can only observe it. It starts in the intellect. All we can do is have a formatory understanding where we're realizing these concepts in the giant cosmology, because that's the thing about Gurdjieff. I mean, we're talking about, it's an entire view of the universe. It's not just, it's as above, so below. Your inner world and the universe are the same. And you start to realize that your holographic participation of kind of infinity in a way. And but you can become quite liberated from the patterns of your past, to where your life will change. Everything will change around you. There's no way around it. As you change, the entire universe changes with you, because there is a connection. As strange as that sounds, and the more you can bring consciousness to that, the more it can affect you. And but eventually, those programs are weakened. We can then start to weed them out. And it's just like if you've ever had a bunch of, I mean, I'm sure this day and age, everyone's had to where their laptop is totally gunked up, it's running slow, and then you might download some program that allows you to go in and find all these system files and get rid of them, clear out your cache, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, it's like I have a new computer. You don't realize how many of these programs have been feeding on you all the time, and they're keeping you depressed and down, identified with your negative emotions, in a slump. The life seems meaningless and like a drudgery, and it's really that they're operating and using all of your consciousness, because you only have so much. Just like the computer only has so much RAM.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all an energy game. That's what I would say,
Mhm.
how I managed to survive cancer, not die when they told me I was going to. So I was able to recover from my unconscious a great deal of energy that was, I also taught code where I was, yeah, I mean, I don't need to retell that story again. You guys can, I'm sure, have heard that before. You can read it in my book. But that was when I recovered that energy and I began to heal practically overnight with proof, with scans, and the doctors going like, I don't know, I guess whatever. They were still recommend, oh, you're gonna die, and I'm like, I think I'm good, actually. I think I'm gonna take it from here. And yeah, so energy is everything. When there's enough of it, it seems to have its own intelligence, right? This is consciousness, and it is full of life. It is life supportive. It favors life. It favors growth. And it's organic, right? This was, in fact, if there's another thing that is so profound for me about Confluence, I think I mentioned this to you already, is that at this time, it's an organic movement. I know the difference. I know it like night and day. And I've been to other events that are not organic. Maybe they might have started that way. They're not like that anymore. And then someone was arguing with me that, oh, well, Alec's not organic and he's got 100,000 folks on Twitter. And I'm not saying Alec is organic. I'm saying his movement is. Right. And their natural growth that's favored like that is unmistakable to me anyway. And I love what you said. You have a right not to be negative. Like, who talks like that? That's such a soundbite there. I love that. And the awakening to reflect what you said, that your own inner transformation will actually change people around you. And it's because of the polarity that it creates. When you grow, when you expand and gain consciousness, it's going to reflect to the people in your life that they either are going to develop a magnetic center, they're going to be hungry for that, and they're going to use you in a good way to not raise their frequency, but to themselves grow and expand, or they're going to have a stronger aversion to you, and they will let themselves away. I had just to bring it home for people because it can sound so theoretical. I had a relationship that was, not great, not perfect, not terrible either. It wasn't a tragic situation, but I did a lot of release work on it. I dug in and I released 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 and then I felt free all of a sudden. And guess what happened? He moved out. It was just, and I was so aware that that work had that result, right? So it's not like, oh, I released and then I had the perfect relationship. It was, no, I released and that transformed my partner to leave. And, and it almost happened with my son too. It was the same thing. It can feel like such a big risk when you grow. But I always say, think about the risk of not growing. How great is that? How deep and profound is the regret going to be sooner or later, maybe on your deathbed? You might die of that pain. So the risk to growth to me is always going to be worthwhile.
Yeah, that's wonderfully said. And a lot of people don't see it that way, that there's the risk. They're just worried about, oh no, if I do this, it's going to cost me that. And it's like, well, what if you don't? You know,
Right. Right, exactly. I've also had the positive experiences where I did the inner work, and say in the case where I couldn't reason with somebody and I couldn't change them, and I wanted to change them but I couldn't do it, and I tried many times, and I know that's not the path and that's not working. Again, making the decision to do my own work, and watching the relationship completely transform, go from being one of animosity and threats to being like, oh, here's my car keys, do you want to borrow my cat? And or not my cat, my car, and could you look after my cat? And like, literally magical transformations that couldn't have happened any other way. I didn't tell them anything. I didn't brag, oh, I did all this inner work. It's way better when you don't do that. And so it is a really beautiful thing when you see people change around you because of what you are brave enough to do.
yeah, it inevitably, you cannot change without it affecting all of your world, your every relationship. And some get better, some get worse, some go away. Like you said, they undo themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that ultimately does you a little bit of a favor. Then you won't be struggling with them. They won't be struggling with you. That's more compassionate, right? If you're constantly creating frictions for someone who doesn't want friction, doesn't want growth, then that's not serving them in any way.
No, and that's like a lot of codependency stuff, issues with boundaries. Yeah, as soon as you have healthier boundaries, then a toxic relationship can't exist. And it
Bingo.
just, yeah.
Yep, that's it. And then so they keep the bad patterns in order to stay in the bad relationship, and it perpetuates, and usually through generations also those patterns go. Grow, grow, grow. Elisa said, one chance here in this body, make your own heart. Nice. Make your own heart. I love that. I have various versions of that. Blow your own mind program, I call it. School of hard knocks, or heart knocks. Jeff Brown says, anything you want to say about that, Micah?
Yeah, okay. So all of the the Gurdjieff work is about awakening and heightening your consciousness through conscious labor and voluntary suffering, right? Or intentional suffering. Meaning, we've talked about this before, but the suffering is going to come. Do you want to come at your own, yes, like, do you want to be the person navigating that, doing it intentionally, and understanding that it will benefit you and bear fruit, because mechanical suffering has no benefit at all, and it is a never-ending drain. But the suffering is coming either way, but one comes with transmutation and one comes with more of a parasitic drain.
Exactly. Yep. Suffering is just built in. And then are you going to choose it in a purposeful, conscious way? or are you going to just keep letting it happen to you randomly, which it will?
Yeah, and it's a good, I mean, it's a good analogy. I like sometimes physical, like gym analogies can be really good. If you don't take care of your fitness, for example, at all, um, it's, it's uncomfortable to go to the gym. You're going to struggle. If you're getting a real workout, there's effort and struggle, and it's not fun and games, right? But then you don't go through the type of suffering someone that didn't do it at all, that avoided that, right? You avoided going to the gym, you avoided, or whatever, the gym work, it doesn't matter, whatever fitness thing, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't go to a gym, I do exercises at home, but the point I'm making is, just as an analogy, if you're not doing something with your fitness, the pain is coming on the other way. Then you're either paying for it now and then getting a reward, which is fitness, wellness, health, longevity, ability. Maybe you're going to be 80 years old and you're able to go up on the roof and clean the gutters, right? um,
Exactly.
the other side, you might be 55 and you can barely walk and you're starting to get dementia in your 60s. Do you know what I mean? And that's a physical analogy, and the same thing's happening with the intellect and the emotions, and all around. Like, the suffering is real one way or the other.
That's it. Actually, I remember a story from a friend of mine whose mother was very wealthy, and she could always afford someone to come and clean her house and run her errands and do that kind of thing. Well, by the time she reached, I don't know, 70 years old or something, even a bit earlier, I'm not sure exactly, she was totally decrepit. Her body was almost wasted away from not having, and my friend was very clear, because she does her own vacuuming and she does her own wiping this and wiping that. And I was almost doing a workout to come home from Confluence and just, like, get a load of laundry in and clean all the crap up that I left behind, apparently, or it got dirty by itself. I don't know, people showed up to make my house dirty while I was gone or something, it seemed like. And it was, so that normal friction of life, that it's good for us. We can embrace that and save ourselves future pain. Yeah, very good. Well, that's beautiful. So the last thing we want to talk about is coming up starting on May 9th. Micah and I have paired up to create a course together called The End of the False Self. And this is exclusively, I joke to myself, oh, I want to do a course on letting false personalities go, because I was just learning that with you and from Gurdjieff. And I thought to myself, well, who would want that? Right? Does anybody actually want that? And who wants that are people who have magnetic center, who have found that normal mechanical life is in fact empty. And if you don't yourself begin to, now I'm going to turn it over you to finish that sentence. How would you say it? No pressure.
Well, oh no, if you can feel the truth in this idea that you are not in control and have the agency that you want to, that you're losing it. Like, think about it. How much of your day is spent imagining other scenarios, stewing over problems in relationships, making what's called internal accounts, right? Where we're, oh, this person shouldn't have done this, and I'm going to tell them that, and you're role playing things. Those are all false personalities. They're taking all of your conscious energy, all that life force. They're draining it. That's keeping you from having big breakthroughs in your life, any kind of peace or meaning, because we're kind of tortured, and they feed themselves. And you can see you get spun up, you're in your head all day, it becomes very neurotic. Um, I, I would say that's, and if you feel like that resonates with you, then you might be willing to do this type of stuff. If you're willing to look under the hood a little bit, um, with, with what we're going to be doing. So I've taught like acting and a type of like breakthrough therapy with acting through the Sandy Meisner technique, and and this is where I found a lot of parallels with the Gurdjieff work. When someone is playing a character, when they understand how to link up their psyche to just the right recipe, to where the believability inside you is there, all of a sudden you can have emotions and abilities that you didn't know. Any single person can be taught to act. It is a skill. Some people are more talented than others, but I can 100% promise you that you can learn to act, and believably, where someone would completely believe your performance. And once you see the power of that, and you get a sense of what it feels like to do it, you can then see kind of on the reverse where the false personalities are acting through you and how they're feeding off of an emotion or a belief. And once that shows up, they just take over. And so through the acting modality, we learn a sense of putting mind, body, and intellect together to where you can start to navigate that and play with it and dance with it. And as you learn to bring it out, you then learn how it was operating the whole time without your awareness, right? And that's the powerful experiential part that we do in a workshop type setting. Yeah.
That's beautiful. It was an answer to a prayer because as part of my training to certify as a deprogramming coach in my own background, they did a lot of role playing to literally bring up, because otherwise you're sitting there in a chair taking notes. It's like, well, there's nothing going on. So they would put us through these scenarios, and then all of a sudden you would find some part of yourself that you did not know was there, and like how like mean or ruthless or whatever kind of you can come up with, and then it was the material for releasing. And last year I started to get hungry for that, but I don't have access to that world anymore, and I don't have the skills, I don't have the training in acting, and especially the therapeutic side of what you're describing. And then when you came along, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, because it's exactly the ingredient that I wanted to add. And we did already an introduction course, and Mike and I decided, it was in the House of Free Will, but we decided to gift it to those who wanted to check it out. So you will get a little taste of it. You get some excellent teachings from Micah. You can click this link in the chat. If it's not in the notes already, I will go and drop it there. So this is totally free. You just sign up with your email. You get instant access to this 2-hour workshop that we did in the House of Free Will. You get a very rare view of one of our last snippets where we are also talking, very beautiful conversations. So there's a whole lot of value just for nothing right there. And then if you already know that you would like to join us, and it was funny because I joked to myself, like I said, who's going to want this? And well, we already have a beautiful group started that signed up and sees the value in this. So, God bless my community, that I've got some incredibly deep people around that have come a distance, right? They're not just, many dabble, but some, they put their toes in the water and then they immerse. They're just in it. So yeah, it was really fun. One of my apprentices signed up yesterday, and I'm like, go team, right? Because if anybody, she's got everything, but she knows she wants to go even deeper. Shout out to you. You know who you are. So there is the second link. This is for the actual course that starts May 9. We're going for 4 weeks in a row. The 3 of the dates are on Saturdays. One of them, the 17th of May, is going to be a Sunday. So you don't have to, well, it's everybody's weekend. We were thinking that would be the best timing. It is good for the Australians and the North Americans, and if anybody in Europe wants to take part, it's going to be a little bit of a late night, but I'd say worth it. I like to stay up late for good things. A little harder to get me up early. I know I'm always a little bit caught between time zones and who I want to serve, but the Australians were for the win this time because they were really the keeners showing up to sign up. And what was I also going to say? Oh, yes. So for anyone that is already in the House of Free Will, we have 33% savings on this course as a gift from Micah and myself. And Maya, it's so funny. I was thinking of you. Absolutely count you. And it wouldn't be the same without you. So I'm so glad to hear you say that. That's awesome. And if you're not already in the House of Free Will like Maya is, you can use this link as an application. It's a 2-step process. We just added a second version of a package where not only do you get the 4 weeks of the course, but you also get a private session with Micah and a second private session with myself to do the work in a personal setting and context. And I'm going to be signing up for one of Micah's sessions as well, because I'm really interested to see how that would go. And is there anything else that you want to say about the class itself?
Yeah, I think that it's the 4 weekends is enough to give people a sense of a taste and a feel to where they can then begin to apply these things to themselves and continue a transformation. I'm quite certain that there will be like new moments for people that they haven't experienced before, where things click together, that can only happen when you're doing it like interactively, integrating emotions, the feelings, the body, and the mind in the way that we will be doing in this. And so if you want, my goal was like with the fourth way stuff, you can, overall it takes many years to go through like a full awakening type transformation, but there are some things, aspects that are highly potent quickly, and so we wanted this to be like something that you would see a difference by the time we're done. You will be able to see and kind of measure that. Uh, the same way if you were doing a weight loss program and you get back on the scale and you're like, oh, I lost 15 pounds. Like we'd like to lose what, 15 pounds of false personality. Would that be a good goal? Something like
At
that.
least.
Yeah.
At
So
least, exactly. I was just going to quickly show the page also so that you guys can recognize. Oh, I won't be able to scroll on that screen. Here it is. So this is the end of the false self, the truth of who you are. And it talks just a little bit about the roots in Gurdjieff's work. As soon as people sign up, we also send links to both the audiobook of In Search of the Miraculous and also The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. And so you can get a little bit up to speed. Nobody needs to be, to read all of those books or anything, but just a little bit familiar with Gurdjieff's work doesn't hurt. And even if you sign up at the last minute and don't have that, I think you'll be fine, especially because of the intro workshop will help you. So again, it's May 9th to the 30th, and it's about recognizing the parts of ourself that they just take energy, they don't satisfy, they leave you empty, and that identification that seems like a given is actually optional. And so, yeah, this is all the details here that you can have. And then there's 3 ways to join. Like I mentioned, for the House of Free Will members, we have added a second tier that I have to put up, which I'll do later today. And there's added savings if you wanted to do the deep work with one-on-one sessions included as well. And then you can do the course. If it's not your time for the House of Free Will, then you can just do the course all by itself without any need to join a cult like mine, which I like very much. And then this is some information about Micah and his background, of really beautiful synopsis of what drew him to this work. So that is that for now. And I think we're starting to, oops, what did I do? Oops, I removed the wrong one. Poor Micah. You had an identity crisis. I removed your personality from StreamYard.
yeah, I didn't exist for a moment.
I know. Whoa. That's fun. And if you, for some reason, you just want to reach out and talk to Micah, then please do email him, because he's a smart guy. Wow, I would spend all day with you guys over there with the brain you got going on. So you can find him at Micah_Ellars@hotmail.com. Maybe if you have any questions or you'd like to inquire about what one-on-one work with him would be like. And yeah, I think we're getting down to the end. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about anything at all, Micah?
Well, I appreciate the comments that everyone has had, and I think it's okay to not have answers and just getting in that space. Oh, well, thank you, Eliza. Appreciate that. Oh, they're actually not my eyes or her. You mean, but Beth's eyes are blue. Okay,
No,
mine are not.
No, she's talking to you.
Oh, mine are hazel. So
Okay.
we might need to calibrate your monitor.
All right, let's get a close look.
Yeah. Beth has blue. You've got the dreamy blue eyes. I've got, yeah. But I was just gonna say I appreciate everybody's comments, and thank you. I look forward to those of you that do want to pursue the one-on-one work. I think that would just be more potent, and we'll go even deeper. But I think when you get the feel, I mean, I don't know how many people have had acting classes before, but just studying acting itself is transformational, right? Like how you said you had a craving for it from the what experiences you had. And when we take it with a much higher level of knowledge that you can link it into, so you can start, it's like you're learning how to drive a vehicle that you didn't know that you had, right? we're gonna, and that's where everyone will have that sensorial experience of, oh, I get the feeling now of what this is and how to get this going, or how to not identify with something. So without giving too much away, this will be experiential, right?
And so much fun. That's what I remember.
Actually, there will be fun. Yeah.
It's really alive. I did dive in with my advanced turncoat group, and we did a little bit of role playing, best as I could kind of come up with, and it was a scream. Like, the entertainment value is really high because we're the funniest things ever in here, right? It's just a comedy show all the time. Yeah. So, Elisa's eyes are hazel too, and I think she's in love with you. So, just so you know.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Elisa.
Mike is married, just so you know. Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, this has been a really fabulous stream. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Micah, for joining. And I'm going to sing us out as usual.
Okay.
Play us out. And I love you guys. It is gold the way that the chat shows up and has this conversation with us. So we're not just talking at people or talking at a camera and wondering if anybody's out there. And we get instant feedback. So it really is a beautiful experience for us as well. Okay, everyone, have a beautiful rest of your day. Oh, one more thing. I wanted to mention that I'm interviewing Andrew Coover. He is in Canada, in Vancouver. He is a warrior on the streets of Vancouver. If you're familiar with East Hastings Street, where people are like regularly overdosing and killing themselves on drugs, and it's become exponentially terrible. It's always been a bad area. Now it's beyond. He's investigating the so-called safe sites where they give people drugs for free and think they're helping people to recover. And it's really a pile of garbage. He's very outspoken, amazing guy. I got on the phone and we talked for way too long about that. Very, very powerful guy with a huge message. So he's going to be coming on, and I believe that is a week today. That means that either he's coming on the Beth of Fresh Air, or it's actually going to be a King Hero episode next week. I'm thinking more like King Hero, because he's got King Hero all over the way. This is the King Hero channel. You can go to Rumble and YouTube and find a certain number of interviews. There are a whole bunch that got canned when YouTube took my channel down in the pandemic. And then you have to go to Spotify or iTunes or one of those podcast channels to find the backlog. If you're looking for anything in particular, just ask me. I'm starting to slowly piece it together, but I think I lost, I don't know, 200 or 300 interviews in one swipe there. They all exist though. I have a copy of every single thing I've ever done. I've never let that go. All right. Well, I think maybe we said everything for today. I love you guys. And one more comment. I want to read this. Ali's been thinking of a story to tell your stepson to explain how we cannot drive emotionally. But I think the best line is, you have the right not to be negative. All right. We're gonna leave on that extremely powerful high note there. Thank you for repeating that. Amazing. Yeah. And there's your mom loving you and loving that. Okay, everyone. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you, Micah.
Oh, my true guide, Lord and supporter of all, forever free from identity. Be well, I'm dwelling in you. Be well, I am dwelling in you. Be well, I am dwelling in you. Vedrashkanu manta, Shvarta Gupta, Maheshwara, Paramatme Dija.